we're here called for an emergency meeting of the CSM to try to come to an agreement with CCP and discuss some of the issues of the controversies, scandal, I guess you'd say, of the Incarnate deployment, the virtual goods store, and the various leaks that have been coming from within the company that have inflamed the player base and sort of, put us into crisis mode.
I mean, from our perspective, this is about reaching out to our people, the community, to sort of help us get an understanding and perspective on their view what's happened over the past couple of weeks. I mean, for us certainly this has been hectic couple of weeks, and
for us as well. Yeah.
I mean, and this has been uncharted territory for us.
Yeah.
I mean, as we've been discussing over the past couple of days,
absolutely.
For us, this is very much uncharted territory. So for us, it's been invaluable, really, to have the CSM on site to be able to get this face-to-face connection and really to be able to talk about these issues instead of just this one-way communication path that we have, which is forums and
back and forth. Yeah. And I think that is really crucial, because I think that if we hadn't been sent here, I mean, it's been no party. I mean, it's been
this has been work.
It has been a gritty, and you can probably see, I guess, from just the bags under my eyes. We have been at it for 2 days straight, having, I'd say, some much more contentious conversations. The resolution at the end of it has been good as far as I'm concerned, and as far as the CSM here is concerned. But it has been contentious at times, much more so than the May Summit, where everyone sort of held hands and sang Kumbaya, and we were all happy.
It's easy to be friends when everything's going swell.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah, there's no real...
I guess the true testament of trust and friendship comes when things aren't going so well, which they are now.
So we should talk a little bit about the joint statements and how that came about. Again, I was talking earlier about how we don't want people to feel like the CSM had been co-opted by CCP. The statements are very different in style and tone because they were written by different groups of people separately.
Yeah.
The CCP left the CSM room, and for a couple of hours we hashed out what I think is a very concise statement that reflects the player base's reactions and fears, and we'll hopefully get into that. Now, it's very important, I think, for people to read that, because the takeaway for our efforts of the last 2 days from a CSM side has really been poured into the exact verbiage of that document.
And really, you can't describe what has just gone on here in a paragraph or in a soundbite or in an excerpt of those documents. I think it's important that people realize they have to read through the entire thing to get a proper sense of context and a proper sense of perspective on what we're actually talking about.
And we were a little mean in our. I'll go ahead and allow that in the.
It used strong wording.
Yeah, so use strong language. It was actually kind of. I wouldn't necessarily say awkward. Maybe a little awkward when we watched the expressions on the faces of the CCPers as they read our.
But I mean, I think it's important to remember that each party here plays its role.
Right.
And you guys are playing your role of keeping us in check from your standpoint very well.
The player base was upset. We were upset. We have attacked those problems, and we've come to, I think, an adequate resolution. Adequate, I think, is a little bit even too. I wouldn't say that everything is hunky-dory, that everything is wonderful, but obviously we wish we weren't here, that none of this had ever happened. Yeah. But I feel like the process has really gotten us a lot of actionable items that CCP can take away from and help with the situation of the player base. And the player base can, hopefully through what we've written, be reassured as to what they're really afraid about. What they're afraid about is gold ammo and pay to win and all that sort of stuff.
Absolutely, and I think we've established
that's not going to happen.
That's not going to happen. This is not the direction or plan for CCP to take.
There are no plans. We saw no plans for that sort of thing in May. We see no plans for that now. There's just unfortunate luck for CCP that there was the leak of the Fearless newsletter that set all this nonsense off. Yeah. That the timing of that with the monocle, the not enough low-end prices and the
I mean, this is, again, I mean, this is a perfect storm of
bad luck, bad timing, bad communication.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something we have to work on.
Yeah. the contention. I think we should talk again a bit how the player base has a lot of times, because they don't know how the CSM thing works. There are fears, even though I think my credibility in going against CCP in the past has been pretty well proven with that whole pesky thread knot thing.
Yeah.
There are fears in some areas that we would just come up here and get co-opted, and you'd wine us, dine us, and then suddenly we'd say, "Sure, you can sell anything you want for Arum." So we should talk about that a bit.
I have to say, I mean, like I said, you guys basically came here at the drop of a hat. You had, what, 4 days advance notice, basically, that we were summoning you here.
4 days, more like 3.
3 days.
It was really, and we sort of knew.
3 days in a plane ride.
Yeah, when things began, we sort of had the feeling that we were going to get called to Reykjavik. I just had that sense.
And I have to say, in those 3 days, I don't know if you prepped before or whatever, but in those 3 days, it's amazing to see the amount of preparation that you've put into this individually. And while it's obvious, I mean, you haven't fully synced up, and thankfully, because the CSM is a delegate council, it's good to see that there are still differing opinions on the council. So there is some amount of I wouldn't say arguing, but communication within you that had you had more time would probably have happened before.
It's a slightly different CSM because we have more alternates this time around.
But it is good also to see that you guys came out strong and in force on the big topics, on the virtual goods, what's on the table, what's off the table, on incarnate issues and how to deal with that, and on communications issue. Yeah. You guys came out as one, and it was it's an interesting dynamic to see that you guys were able to really just cement around a specific viewpoint and uphold that. And I have to say it's been refreshing. It's been challenging, and it's been at times difficult to to face this at times wall of unity, firing squad, wall of unity. That sort of
wall of unity.
Wall of unity sounds
from a certain perspective, and this is something that people who aren't actually at the summits might not realize, and I'm afraid that for the CCP employees, for some of them who have actually been up in front of us, they haven't understood this, because we're all there on our laptops. Yeah. And we might look like we're just taking notes, but what's actually happening is we're talking to each other on Skype, and we're coordinating our responses such that, ideally speaking, we can be as effective as possible. Yeah. It was, I would think that anyone who lines up our statements together, reads the CCP response and reads the CSM response, will hopefully come away from that understanding that we threw many, many, many punches, which is not necessarily easy considering how many large Vikings there are here. I mean, Arnar is a very tall guy, and Peter is gigantic.
Peter is gigantic.
Yeah, I mean, he's really a massive human being. But we were not nice. I mean, we were civilized. Sometimes. And
while this conversation, we can have this conversation now, 2 days into the meeting, this is not a conversation we could have 2 days ago.
No.
Because there were simply unresolved issues that caused tension.
Yesterday afternoon was particularly, that was the gritty bits.
Yeah. And I mean, it's good to know that you have people that, I mean, it's not good to know, it's obvious. The CSM is not a group of yes men or people that we bring over to wine and dine. I mean, these were difficult discussions, and it's kind of, this sounds a bit silly even as I'm saying it, because this is an internet spaceship serious business kind of thing. But
yes, it's very
really, I mean, we negotiated. We really negotiated to
hammering out compromises and really trying to delineate, because the issue of virtual goods is so complex, and one of the things that I dislike about the debate, not amongst ourselves, but in general, is that it is too easy to take a bright line scenario. Obviously, I don't like gold ammo, I don't like the idea of gold ships, and there is no indications of that happening from CCP, none whatsoever, and we're trying to calm that sort of, the crisis wasn't really so much the crisis of what happened on its face, there was always this specter of what people feared was going to happen, right? And so, when we really dug deep into the discussions for hours of the virtual goods business, finally brought out of it, I think, a very clear statement from CCP as to their views, that you should never be able to
buy unfair advantage
Mm-hmm.
with time rather than with money rather than time.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think we came to a very good conclusion. And more importantly than having a good soundbite to give people, it's important that people realize that we have a mutual understanding of what lies behind that.
Action points.
Yeah.
I mean, after this, we're going to part ways, and there are going to be things that CCP is going to be doing.
Yeah.
Particularly in the realm of dev blogs and communications, to really get in front of the concerns of the players. They've been trying to do that by having us here and discussing privately. But we have very clearly identified areas, and CCP has agreed to talk about, to improve and come out with blogs addressing these particular issues.
After having gone through these 2 days, I know that you're going to hold us accountable on those things, and that is good to know.
Yeah, well, I am. That's what I'm here for.